Hey, this is Jenna Birmingham, and you are listening to another VO podcast where I'm pretty sure all the guys own air fryers.
And welcome back to another VO podcast. Here we are with a gang of 4 plus 1 today. Andrew Morrison is with us. Hey, Andrew.
Howdy. How's it going?
Man, it's going. I know you and I talked a little last week, and we're kicking some tires. And I thought, there's not a better time for all of us to get together and talk about the business, how things have changed just for all of us, and how the changes we're seeing from the outside and all the fun stuff. Because all you new people need to know this stuff, because this is not a bed of roses. It is not. This is a tough business. It's tough. It is so tough. We have decided for this episode, Charles, Jake, Alden, and myself will all talk in a different accent, so it'll freshen the podcast. So.
Is that what we agreed to just before we started?
Yes, I believe we did.
I think only Charles agreed to it.
Because I honestly was kind of like only partially listening, but so I wasn't sure. I thought we were just talking in accents.
No, but Charles is going to do
Jacob,
it.
just pick an accent and just go with it, okay?
What about
do your
Rhode
best,
Island
Archie
accent?
Bunker.
A Rhode Island accent.
That'll work.
Rhode Island.
That'll work. So, Andrew, you're down in Georgia.
Yes.
Thank goodness for you. Unlike me, you don't sound like you're from the South.
Have you seen the devil down there?
Well, I mean, I was a military kid. And so, even though I've spent a lot of my life in Georgia, I bounced around. Like, most of my elementary life, I was in Hawaii. I've lived in North Carolina. I was born in Colorado. And so, just, I've had a lot of military influence, and a lot of people within the military speak in standard, natural American accents. And so,
lucky you, man. Lucky you. My path was, I was born, we lived out in the middle of nowhere. In Tennessee, and then we moved to Nashville, but then we went from there to Dallas, Texas for a while, and then we went to Atlanta for several years, and then came back to Nashville. So I never had
part of Atlanta?
The Chambly-Dorville area.
Okay, yeah, I'm very familiar with that area.
Yeah, just kind of a little north of the city there, but it was, you're talking early 70s. This was ages ago, but it was a great place to grow up during that part of my life. Little League baseball down there was phenomenal. I mean, we had opening day, and Chief Nakahoma came from the Atlanta Braves, and they'd have Braves players come out to the games. I remember
that's cool.
Sitting in the stands watching us play one time, and some of you guys may know who he is, but it was an actor named Warren Oates, and his son was on our team, and he lived in Atlanta. And he was in a lot of military and westerns and stuff back in the day. Pretty good actor, but it was
Chief
neat.
Nakahoma, is that like a mascot?
He was a mascot. He had a teepee out in left field, and if they ever hit a home run in on his teepee, and it was the other team, you bet the ball's coming back.
Okay, because when you said Nakahoma, I was thinking like Japanese, and I was like,
I know, but
like, okay.
It was that was during the big, the Henry Aaron days, as he was chasing Babe Ruth's record. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but he would come out and do the rain dance around the pitcher's mound before every game and all that. It was kind of neat. It was neat to see for all 3,500 people that would come to the ball game back then. Nobody would come to Braves.
The screaming
games.
Masses of 3,500 people.
Yeah, they were so bad back then.
It wouldn't fly today, though.
Teams.
That's all I got to say.
No. Wouldn't fly today. Yeah. So, Andrew, you talked about that growing up that way. Tell us a little bit more about, the early days and the different things you've done that led you to get to voiceover.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started with a business management degree. I dual enrolled in high school. And the primary reason I did that was, one, because it gives you a general education. And then when I figured out where I wanted to go to college and what I wanted to do, I wouldn't have to take the core classes. I could just focus on my major.
Oh, that's smart too.
And I was a creative kid, and I was really creative in the kitchen. So I went for a culinary degree. But it turns out even in fine dining, unless you're like running the show, you're not going to make more than $40,000 a year.
Right.
Really?
And And so I bounced it around restaurants. I eventually got out of the restaurant space and got into restaurant technology, working for a food development app where basically they were the competitors for like DoorDash and Uber Eats and Grubhub, but like throughout the Louisiana area. And so then when they scaled over to Georgia, I was the market manager there. And I got an advertisement for voices.com on my phone that said, get a job as a voice actor. And I was like, I'd like to get a job, thinking like it was a job back then. And so I'm filling everything out. And I'm like, okay, resume, none, demo. I don't know what that is. And then the price tag of $500 a year came up. And I'm like, I don't have $500 spare dollars right now. And so I just started researching everything I could find out. I started joining all the Facebook groups. People like Alicia West Bake and Dawn Barnes started giving me advice and like taking me up under their wing and being like, hey, here's a feasible way to do this. And so then I started hopping on any easy entry places I could find. I did a lot of audiobooks through ACX. I landed a DLC for Fallout 4 as one of my very first projects. So that was really, really cool.
Nice.
And then I just grew my career there through auditioning and direct marketing and building relationships. And
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, with Andrew saying he has his culinary degree,
we got a new route to go down.
Yeah, I know. Do you still mess around with some food?
Oh yeah, I'm all in the vocal fry group. Like, man, I was actually thinking about that because me and a bunch of other voice actors, because we enjoy food presentation, we would send each other pictures of like the food we would make. And at one point, I was like, I should just create a Facebook group with all that. And then Dan Marion beat me to it. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. But he did it so much better than I ever would have. He put so much more attention than I ever would have. And I love the Vocal Fry name. But
yeah, he does put a lot of time and effort into it. Answers all the posts. He does a really good job running that, and it's a good outlet because you don't get in there and talk at all about voiceover. It's all about the food. I think it's cool. It's a nice break. It was and
he orchestrates it so well, even when he has because he cares very much about that group because he's noticed the community is built. So he has a couple of people that he's ranked as administrators of the group, me included. And so even what you guys aren't seeing behind the scenes is even when he's like sick or he broke something recently, I believe. But there was like whenever there are durations of time where he's like, hey, I'm going to have to focus on family or my health or something like that. He still makes sure that group is taken care of.
Yeah, you got to have a good backup system. I got the same thing for the VO Life group. There's about 4 or 5 people that are staying on top of stuff because I can't. I try to, but it's hard. And it really helps keep that support system going, keep people engaged, and it works great. So from the few times that we've talked, I really feel you've got a super strength for animation video games. And I know you do a lot of narration stuff and promo, you're doing some automotive, you're working on a lot of other stuff. But if you had to just say today, I could get all of this I want, which genre would you rather have?
I can't pick one. Each one feeds a different part of me. You know what I mean? Like I love learning new things and I love educating myself because I feel like educating myself in new areas is part of my journey through life. And so I love e-learning because it gives me that ability. I love commercial storytelling because it's a whole other beast than like animation or video games. I love dubbing because it allows me to both be technical and theatrical at the same time. So I have goals. I have goals on things that I haven't done. Like I haven't done storecast work. And so that's something I'm currently searching for. I haven't done museum tours. I'm reaching out to people that build out the TV programs that are within gas station pumps now. So there are different things that I haven't done that I'm exploring, but I couldn't really just pick one genre. I mean, if I were to have to, I would have to say explainer videos, only for the fact that explainer videos have the opportunity to be a little bit of each. They have the opportunity to be a commercial. There are animated characters within explainer videos. They are almost mini e-learning videos for a product or a service. And so
good point.
Yeah,
it does.
Right.
We can't be happy with one thing.
Yeah. Like podcasting.
Right. I got to do my first. I did my first museum thing this year, and
Oh, yeah?
it was for the Casey Jones Museum in Jackson, Tennessee. So it
That's
tells the
cool.
story of Casey Jones, and it
And his
walks you through
relationship with the
his
Ninja
house.
Turtles.
Yeah, that's him. And his house is actually on that
Shut
premises.
up! I
so
just
got
realized
it.
what you said.
So they walk you through the house, and they go, there's all these relics and stuff in there, and then they tell the story of the big crash and all that, and then Raphael shows up and ruins everything.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Now,
I
here's
wasn't
the thing.
even listening. I'm just like Casey Jones, Ninja Turtles. Like, oh my god!
So, Troy, now that you did that, are you going to are you going to make a point to go to the museum so you can kind of hear it?
I could, because it's actually about 2 hours away. And my
Nice.
wife and I talked about we might, like on a Monday or a Tuesday or something, maybe, because she's off, all during the week. So we may. I saw where Brad did that to the Titanic thing he went to, and I can see where that would be emotional. I have enough trouble if I hear my own spots. I'm like a 6-year-old that his mom just smacked a fire out of him, and he's going,
Oh, wow.
I get very emotional hearing that, because I know what I put into it. And then when I
Right.
hear it, I'm like, it dawns on me how many people are actually hearing it. And sometimes that is really overwhelming to me. I don't know why.
Well,
I'm that way when I go to a concert.
Well, there
I
are
can go
those
to a
two
concert and
levels.
do that.
Well, there are those multiple levels of the feelings that you get when you get booked for a casting.
Yeah.
There's that level of, yes, I booked it, but there's also that level of, I put this into that audition. I put this piece of myself and my creation and my creative abilities into this. And the casting director heard it, and it resonated with them enough for them to book you. And that's a powerful feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is, because as we know, there are hundreds of people being considered most times. Sometimes it may only be 50 or whatever, but a lot of times it's hundreds or even multi-hundreds that are screened down to those final 10 and whatever, and then down to the final one. And it's very satisfying, but it's very emotional sometimes. But I'm a person, I can go, I used to play music. So when I go to a concert and the crowd starts getting into it, it really emotionally will overwhelm me, because I remember what it was like to be up there, and it's not that you're controlling people, but you're in control of what's going on with what the next song's going to be and how you're trying to swing the moods.
Right.
And if you're playing for a bar, they're like, make them get up and dance so they'll drink more and all that stuff. So I know, but as
be sure to check your service,
right?
Yep.
You ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here.
Right.
But the change, we would go out and play places in Nashville for open crowds and open for people like Pam Tillis and Gene Watson, old country acts. And to watch the crowd get into it, and to watch them ride the emotions of the songs. But then when you're out there on the other side and you've been on both sides, and I think that's why it does me that way when I hear some of my spots. I think the one that got me the most, I did like a 2-minute narration for Ohio University. They were putting in a new president. And the guy called me back and said, I just want to let you know how well it went, and that there were people walking out of there with handkerchiefs wiping their face.
Nice.
He said, you really nailed it. And then when I played it back and I put myself in that position and listened to it, I was like, holy crap, I did, and we don't always get that. We should get it for everything we win. We should have been that freaking good on it. But sometimes it's not, because, if you're rattling off prices for a car and stuff like that, I don't get as emotionally attached to stuff like that. But a read like that that's heartfelt, when you're talking about how students leave a piece of them on the campus when they graduate and this, it was very heartfelt. But yeah, I hear one of my car spots and I'm like, yeah, that was mine. Yeah.
He's like,
1995.
what a deal.
I know.
Well, how about you, Andy? What's like one, if you could think of one off the top of your head, what's like one of the, I don't know, one piece that you did, not necessarily the biggest or the biggest brand or national or something, but something that really meant something to you? Can you think of one that like, you're like, man, that was great to be a part of that?
I mean, doing a trailer for Spider-Man was obviously really, really cool. But honestly, there's this one burger company called Sunfed Ranch, and they're based out of California. And I did their rodeo burger spot. And I don't know why, but maybe it was just the way that I was interacting with the creative team and the directors and stuff like that, and how appreciative they were, and like how my read resonated with them. It's just the feedback that I got was so detailed and so heartfelt, and that was one of the first moments, and so it's a resonating moment of me giving a performance and someone actually returning and letting me know that my performance resonated with them, and that just based off of that read that they were able to really feel the emotion I was trying to give.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you are literally on the same wavelength. You and the team, like everything was in sync, and man, that's a great feeling.
It is.
That is a great feeling.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, with your background and your schooling background, marketing for you has to be a little easier maybe than it is for some in this business who never had their own business, never had to market, never had to do, maybe they have just tons of natural acting ability and they're great voice actors, but running the business side and building a business side, you seem to have been excelling at that. You've got a lot of things in place. So bring everybody up to speed on how all of that intertwines with your business.
And when we say up to speed, listen to this, guys, because this dude is like on the Autobahn of marketing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really most of my business experience didn't come from my previous experience. It actually came from my voiceover experience, because I was in corporate backgrounds where there were always already systems in place. You know what I mean? Where the corporation had already built systems, and I was there following the systems and learning the systems. But when I was building my voiceover business, I was having to learn how to build a system. And so I really just like to go back to the basics of marketing that everybody forgets. And I mean, it's understandable because there are Facebook advertisements over and over telling you, revolutionize your marketing with this, try this. Hey, this agent, you've been doing marketing all wrong. But there are only 4 ways that you can get business and 4 ways you can outsource business. You can do cold outreach, warm outreach, content creation, or ad spend. And then if you want to outsource it, employees, affiliates, what were the other 2? Hiring an agency, or there's one more. But so if the only things that I can do are cold outreach, warm outreach, content creation, and ad spend, and I don't touch ad spend, the reason being is because unless I'm spending $100 a day on advertisements, I don't want to compete in that already saturated market. And also, social media in and of itself is a business. So once they start seeing that you're willing to boost your content and pay for it to be boosted, they no longer want to push it organically. And when I say cold outreach, that includes doing auditions. Anything that gets me in front of a new buyer, whether it be my audio or an email or anything. So when things are slow, I look at, okay, how much outreach have I done? How many auditions have I done? How many emails have I done? How many emails have I sent? And I calculate all of that like as a whole. And I like to simplify the marketing side of it so that way it's built as a system. So that way I can spend more of my brain power doing the creative and fun parts of it.
Totally makes sense. And I know we talked a little bit about that before. The content creation, I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of being seen and being heard. Sometimes,
absolutely.
you know, a lot of people think, well, I'm just marketing to other voice actors if I'm doing this. You're not really. I mean, there's going to be a lot more people. Yeah. And if you're properly tagging and doing things the right way, you can definitely
100%.
be seen. Yeah. So I think that is a big piece that a lot of people skip. And it's a hassle.
Look at the content we're creating. It's not just voiceover content. You and I are talking about marketing. If you talk to Tracy Lindley, you're talking about LinkedIn. There are people that are going to go find Bill Farmer interviews or Daniel Ross interviews because they like to hear the story of like how a Disney character came up. Like even in a voiceover centric podcast or any kind of voiceover centric content marketing, you could always find a way to broaden your audience just depending on how you tell the story.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, you got to think about it too. Like, so maybe you're giving VO tips or something. Let's just say that's the topic, and you're like, well, nobody else is going to watch this, but the people that do VO tips, or you're doing a collaboration with somebody on a animation movie or something. Well, the thing is, social media goes out and gets put into other people's feeds. Right. So is there, so many people look at social media in the corporate world. Everybody does. When you're on your break, when you're waiting at the bus stop, when you're sitting in a restaurant waiting for your coffee, whatever it is, right? They're scrolling through stuff. And what if yours happens to pop up and you're doing a collaboration and you guys are doing a collaboration for a Disney film and you're doing a character, and this person happens to be working at a company where he's in an animation company? I mean, you never know what happens, right? Or
True.
or you show an ad that you did and they're like, wow, like I really like that ad. That voice would be perfect for this campaign thing that I'm working on. Oh, maybe I should do a commercial like that. Maybe I'm going to reach out to this person. You know what I mean? It comes organically from so many different places that I think people who don't post anything on social media are just, it's not that they're hurting themselves. It's just not, they're not helping themselves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Sorry, that was a really random.
Well, I mean, also with the
but
tip thing, even if you're not getting a lot of voiceover traction, when a buyer goes and looks at your feed, now you have credibility that, hey, I know what I'm talking about.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
that's a really good point. And I think podcasts are wonderful for that, because if you've got 50, 100, 200 episodes, you're like, well, he must know what he's doing. Look at all these podcast episodes. And that's one of the reasons I've continued with doing these. It's a great creative outlet, because for somebody that wanted to be in radio or wanted to go in broadcasting, and then kind of like what Andrew was talking about, culinary paid crap at certain levels. Well, by gosh, radio does too. So that was when I said, yeah, I need to get a different degree. I don't need to go into mass comm. And there's just so many different directions you can go, like you said, with these podcasts. The premise and what I enjoy about what you're doing with yours are these, let's sit down, have a cup of coffee and talk about things. And it's a really nice laid back atmosphere. You get to know people a little better. And that kind of rubbed off on me after I had been on your podcast, because it made me want to, when people are on, not talk about the same thing that they talk about on all the others. If you bring somebody on for a certain purpose, we're talking about VO Atlanta, or we're talking about demos or whatever. That's one thing. But when they're coming on, I had no idea that George the Tech was an avid cyclist.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
That was cool.
That was things we wanted to learn, and about his daughter, and about, how long he'd lived out in LA. I knew he came from over on the Virginia coast or over in the Virginia area and had went to school there. I'd heard that before, but I never heard why was he in California? And what do you do when you're not doing this? Because it looks like he does this 24/7. If you see him on social media, it's like, this guy's so busy. But then we got to learn a different side. And I love that about your podcast, because we not only hear what somebody has to offer to the industry, but we get to know them and know their people too. And I think that's really important.
Well, that's kind of how it happened. That's how it started, was during the pandemic. Like, you couldn't go to conferences and you couldn't go meet people. So I just started sending out Zoom invites, whether it was somebody that was answering a lot of questions within the Facebook communities, whether it was somebody I knew from like TV or something like that. Like I was very fortunate to have coffee with D. Bradley Baker and different people. And so around December, that's when it started to come to a podcast, because Everett Oliver recommended it to me. He told me, if you're having coffee and sitting and getting to know further than what you already know about people and their processes and who they actually are, a lot of other people would gain value from that content.
Yeah, record that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
So two things. The way I met Andrew was at conferences, right? So it was One Voice and VO Atlanta, which I can't remember which one it was. I think it was One Voice.
It was One Voice in Dallas. Nope, it was One Voice the first time. That's where we first met.
Was that the cookie time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's what I wanted to say, because the culinary part comes in, because this dude with his lady made the best snickerdoodle.
I had no part in that.
Oh, really?
So Jordan, that's Jordan's snickerdoodle recipe. So at one point, I had a coffee roasting business. And that ended up going out of business because in order to avoid having to get FDA licenses and all that, I just contracted a roaster that I used to work for when I was out of a job at one point, and I worked at a coffee shop. Turns out it was a roastery operation. And so I contracted him to roast my coffee for me. So I had a bunch of these little flat seal bags that I would sell to like fine dining restaurants, so that way they could just rip and pour it into the coffee maker and go. Well, my coffee roaster ended up retiring and moving to North Dakota, I believe, because his mother-in-law had gotten sick. So I still had a whole bunch of those tiny little flat seal bags.
Perfect size for
right. So perfect size for a snickerdoodle. And
Yep.
it has the valve to keep the coffee fresh. So it keeps the cookie nice and crisp without making it like humid and moist and all that jazz. And so I figure what goes good with coffee other than like a little snickerdoodle. So we throw a QR code on there and
dude, it was so good. And that freshness seal thing worked because I remember finding one of those snickerdoodle packets in the bottom of my backpack from a past conference, and it was almost a year old. And I was like, well, I'll open it. And I opened it, and it was good. It was just as good, man. And
awesome
so that's
stuff.
the first thing. You know, we met during conferences, and also Andrew is Andrew is he's a real dude, right? What you see is what you get.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. It's not sugar coated. He doesn't want to interview you or talk to you just for the views or just for the content, because we've had phone calls where it was just coffee talk. We weren't recorded. We weren't, putting it on a podcast. It was just so we could hang out and talk. And I've also been invited. Sorry, I'm not going as much, but to a little private game group that he has once a week. And so,
last week of the month.
Oh, last week of the month.
Last week of the month.
Yep. And so, Andrew is, like I said, he's a genuine guy that really truly does just want to get to know you and get to know more about you and have a relationship with you. It's not a one-sided venture that sometimes we run into, right?
You're so sweet.
But the other thing I wanted to ask
he's very sweet. You're right.
So Andrew.
Yes.
Tell us a little something about you that, that everybody sees you as Andrew, coffee talks, they see they see your posts on socials and this and that, but like, tell the audience and us a little bit, something that's, so what makes you tick? What's that thing that you're like, oh man, I really love doing this thing, or something like that?
I don't know. I mean, because most of my life is either my business or my kids. You know what I mean? Because I'm constantly churning out stuff and I'm constantly sending emails and doing auditions because this is what I love. I love creating. I don't know. I'm pretty simple. Like, I don't get out a whole lot. Like, I'm pretty much here 24/7.
Business and kids, man, sounds about right.
Business and kids. That's
if
most
you
of
got
my
kids,
life.
it's kids and something else. So I mean, it's not
right.
Yeah.
So in the current moment with the kids, what's one of the things that all of you guys love to go do?
We like roller skating. We really like roller skating. We do a lot of reading together. Like we'll read books, and I'm working on like my kids like getting more into reading, and trying to advance their vocabularies, because they're wanting to get behind the booth. And so I'm trying to get them better at reading out loud. So I have like different steps because my kids have booked work.
Nice.
But they want to book more. So what I'm going to do, I have them like reading like certain amounts every single day out loud. And then I'm going to start taking them to classes at the Atlanta voiceover studio and see how well they do and see if this is still something that they want to do. Because if they just want to have fun behind a microphone, we can just create our own productions and do that. That's not hard.
Right.
But if they actually want to join the business, then I want them to know everything they're getting into.
And as early as possible too.
And recently I got some of those swords, some of those like trainings, like those swords that they use to like train you to sword fight, like the plastic ones. And so me and my son have been sword fighting in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like legit fencing or just messing around?
Samurai swords?
Well, so I've been working on my cardio and my reflexes.
Yeah.
And so
same.
He goes offense, I go defense.
Shut up.
And so I'll just let him go offense and then I'll go defense. So all I'm doing is avoiding and blocking and moving.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
that sounds fun.
How old is he, Andrew?
He's 9.
He's 9? Okay.
He's 9. He's 9 and my daughter's 7.
Yeah, my son by age 9 was already a foot taller and outweighed me, so I would not have wanted to sword fight with him. He was a big boy, and it didn't take very. By the time he hit middle school, he was like grabbing me around the waist and lifting me up in the air and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, but he was a good kid. He was one. He never never gave me any trouble, but I always thought as big as he is, if he ever turns on me, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
No, he did great.
If the full moon comes out. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew, what so when you guys go on vacation and stuff like that, are you a take a travel kit with me, or are you a this is vacation and I'm checking out, everybody knows I'm out and I'm unavailable?
It
Or is it a
was unavailability up until recently. But that's because up until recently, a lot of my work has just been remote, or even like my quick productions have been like, get it back to us by tomorrow or the next day or whatever. And so I could just let them know I'd be out of office, and they weren't things that needed to be done urgently.
Right.
But as my career has grown, I'm finding more and more often I'm getting those things where they're like, hey, we need this within 2 hours. We need this tomorrow. This is a bigger production. We need you to do a directed session for a dubbing project. We need this, and this. And so now I've had to start taking a travel rig with me.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We tend to
Not a
be
bad thing.
we tend to be at the end of the project. We're the last
Right.
thing they think of, and they cram us right on top of what's done. And yeah, I agree with you. I run into that more as well. It's
Right.
changed a little bit.
You know what
And
I
also,
found?
you
what
get
I-
all the best auditions when you tell people you're going out of town.
They
Yeah,
talk about
and-
that all the time. If you want to book something, go out of town, get sick,
Right.
Or
you
just
know.
leave.
Yeah.
And I tell my wife like yesterday about she had to go to the chiropractor, and she worked Sunday night. She got up Monday, 11:30, 12. She's got to go to the chiropractor at 1:30. I said, heck, I'll go with you. I'm not busy. As soon as I left, I got 2
course.
jobs.
Of
I got 2
course,
people wanting something.
always.
Can you get this to me today? And I'm like, would it be okay if it's in a couple hours? Sure. So we went ahead, took our time, went to the chiropractor, went and had something to eat, came back home, and then I worked, like 4:30 to 7 or whatever to finish up. But yeah, it always works that way. Leave and you'll get work.
Well, the
Right.
only problem is if you leave and you get work and you can't get back in time, that's when it's bad.
Yeah.
I did that with a dentist appointment. Like it was a 1 hour window, but it takes like 30 minutes to drive there. So basically I'm gone for 2 hours.
Right.
And as soon as I get there, I get an email. Hey, could you send in a test read for this? And we think we want to go with you. And I was like, can I get it to you in like an hour? I'm wrapped up for like the next hour and a half. And he's like, I don't know if we could wait that long, but sure. And then I was done with the thing, and I messaged him back just in case. And I was like, I'm free now. I'm gonna be able to record that and send it to you in 30 minutes. Are you still good with that? And he's like, nope, the client went with somebody else already. And I was like, shoot.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's
like,
amazing.
what do you do?
It's
I've
amazing.
had that
On to the
experience
next
with
one at
radio
that point.
commercials. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
just got to put it behind you.
One of the
Yeah.
best lines that I learned from a coach was your ability is your availability, right? Availability is your ability. So
100%,
Oh, absolutely.
man.
Yeah.
I
If
gotta
it
be
is,
on
you
time.
can't be
It
there,
is.
then you can't be there. They're going
It
with somebody
is.
else.
It is. Yeah. I've got a session Sunday morning at 9:00, and the client's in France, so, and when they ask, are you available? He said, let me do the math on the time difference. This will be, he said, is it 9 a.m. there right now? I said, yeah. He said, well, that would be perfect right now, but Sunday morning. Okay. Sure. No
Like,
problem.
well, I guess I ain't going to church.
Yeah. Not church. Church is not till 11. We're good.
Hey, perfect. You still make it
Yeah,
to church.
we're good. But
Don't worry, you can
gotta
play
jump through the
anytime.
hoops. I left a 9 to 5, a 40-hour week, so I could work 80 hours. I think.
Right.
No doubt.
But you know what? That's dope. 80 hours for yourself, working for yourself, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first 2
That's a good way
years,
to
it
look at
really
it.
was. It was a ton of hours. It's a little better now because I've learned. And I don't know if all you guys have learned this, and that's one of the other things I wanted to hit on the last few years, how things have changed. And we have matured and learned our business. We have learned what we book. We have learned what we don't book. I can pull up 10 auditions on a pay-to-play, and I can look at them and go, yeah, I probably have a shot at this one. And that's the one I'll audition for. I used to would run through all 10 of them like an idiot because people told me practice, and and it didn't help me at all. But I was busy all day, but I didn't make any money. Now it's more of I know what I'm auditioning for. I know how to get the content out quick. I kind of know what I'm doing, and I've learned myself in this business, and that was a big change for me. Once I learned myself, the amount of time I spend in here went way down, and the amount of money I made went up. So it's a nice balance, but it takes years to get there.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
market your butt off and audition your butt off. You got to do one or of the other or both for several years before you get established and before you learn yourself and you build your own system of how to do things. Because
Yeah.
you
Keep
can
relationships
coach.
with your clients, you know?
Yes. And you can coach with all these great coaches, you know, and a lot of us have. But you have to take bits and pieces from all those coaches and come up with the Charles method or the Jake method or the Andrew method or the Alden method. And now that's your method and you apply it to your auditions because it's a piece of this and this and this and this, and it works for you. It amazes me. I've been to coaches and they were trying to teach me something and I just couldn't get it. I'd go to the next person, maybe say it was 6 months later, and they're showing me the same exact thing in a different way. And the light bulb goes off. That's what he was trying to tell me, but he didn't tell me
Right.
that way. And that's why it's good to coach with different coaches. But all the way around the world to ask this question, Andrew, you kind of got into this, you know, similar to a time when we all did. What changes have you seen be the most impactful or the biggest changes you've seen in the last 2 to 3 years in this business for people getting in, people getting out, or how things work day to day?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious AI change because like the people that are coming in are now coming into the generation of AI. But I mean, most of the other changes I have seen have just been company evolutions. You know what I mean? Because I consistently think with a surplus mindset. There are constantly production companies coming up out of nowhere and falling, like going into bankruptcy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so what a lot, like, especially with people have been weird about political lately and they're seeing it on pay to plays and they're seeing it through their agents instead of getting direct contact now. But
Yeah.
you know, I mean, while those companies are evolving, now we have more production companies that are starting to go direct. While some production companies only hire through Voice 123. It just depends on where that company is in their evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
I mean, while we're not going to our agents' offices like they used to back in the day, like I still feel like the ways to get business are still the same. They just won't be with the same companies that you were getting business with.
Great point. That's a great point. Have you noticed, and we talk about this sometimes when we meet, if there has been, I know, and George said this really well. We talked about the wave of people in late 2020, 2021 doing home studios, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're starting to see a lot of gear on groups for sale. Do you still have people coming to you asking you a lot about how to get into the business? Is it just as many, or has that always not been too bad of a thing, or what traffic do you see?
I mean, it has declined. I still get it because I'm a part of a lot of like local, like Georgia groups and Douglasville groups and stuff like that. But that's mostly just because I like to find local community because the conferences I go to only happen twice a year. So I like, and then the Atlanta Voiceover Studio has a meetup every quarter. But like past that, I'm just in my booth doing my thing and talking to people over Zoom. So I like to find local community. And when people find out what I do, usually it's people that already have some kind of equipment. So like say if somebody's a DJ or somebody's doing like local like Chamber of Commerce podcasting. And then they're like, oh, there's an actual voiceover industry. Like, what is this about? And they're just curious. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I have seen a large exodus of the people that came in during the pandemic where they were seeing things on TikTok where they can make $1,000 an hour doing audiobooks on ACX. And then they went and spent a bunch of money on production stuff and coaching. And then they found out that this wasn't a get rich quick thing. And then they started yelling at everybody, you lied to me and you told me didn't. Like I am seeing the exodus of those people but what I find is cool is the few that I have like tried to figure out what they went on to do further. They still, if they didn't sell their equipment, they found a different creative outlet that they found more aligned with them. You know what I mean? I see people that are like, okay, strict voiceover isn't working for me. But now I know how YouTube production works. And so I'm going to start working on YouTube channels or Twitch streaming, or I'm going to go find other audio related services that I can provide to other businesses or, you know, so I do think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Creative is creative. If you got it in you, you want to do it. One thing doesn't work out, you'll find something else.
Right.
I couldn't make it as a singer songwriter, so here I am doing voiceover.
I think the creative part too is like there's this creative thing inside you, and you have to feed that creative
right.
little person in there that wants to do something, wants to try something, wants to
For
do
sure.
whatever.
And not just that, there's the accumulation of skill. Like you were just saying, you used to be a singer and songwriter. It's not that you stopped being a singer-songwriter and had to start your entire life all over when you became a voiceover artist. You instead had this accumulation of different skills that you had built over that period of time. And that helped you to redefine them within a new outlet.
Absolutely, especially on the audio production side, and even live audio mixing. How that even comes into play when you are mixing spots for a client. I'm mixing something for the radio. It's not a whole lot. Well, it's a little different, but not a whole lot different than to stand back with a big PA board and make sure everything is blending perfectly and the voices are riding the music. It's your ear. Can you hear that? And it's that way a lot with audio. But it was fun to go from 8-track, 4-track, the multi-track cassette recorders, and then going to digital. And the first thing that I got to do digital was a gospel album. I want to say 92 maybe. And the guy had the whole upstairs of his house was his recording studio, and was pretty nice actually. And
that's cool.
That was my first foray into digital recording, and to watch him be able to cut stuff in and do the things he did, I thought, man, I'd love to learn to do that. So yeah, then I can't even remember what I bought back then, and started learning. And it was a matter of, you could bring music tracks into it and have a vocal booth at home and sing with those tracks myself, those gospel tracks, and record my own CDs. I didn't even have to go see anybody anymore. So made it kind of nice. But yeah, everything's come a long way. We don't want to keep you all day. We probably could, because there's so much to talk about. Yeah, so much to talk about. But let's transition for a few minutes into the conferences, because Charles kind of brought them up earlier. You talked about the two you love going to, and you were I think you were telling me the other day, we were just having an off the cuff conversation. You were talking about volunteering, and you haul stuff over to Texas and everything, and do a lot of work for them and help. So it's not just the fact of going. And where I'm going with all this is where I see the servant heart that he's got. And that's what you brought up earlier, Charles, the way he is serving the VO community, serving his clients. It's a lot different than I'm selling to my clients, or I am selling a product, or I'm putting a podcast out so I'll get this or that. I view you as a person in this industry that gives back and serves. So kind of hit on the conferences and what they mean to you and why you love going to those.
Well, it's a layer of things. It's a recharge of energy when 100%. especially when I've been in my booth for a long duration of time. And my first couple of conferences, I went and I built out my list of different things that I wanted to do. Now I build out my classes strategically, because there is so much going on at conferences all the time. I'm able to take a list and figure out what brains I want to pick, or what information I want to get that I feel like I'm missing in my business. And I'm able to get that. And it's like the only time I get to hug you and Charles. So
there you go. There you go. That's a good point.
The real reason is revealed, because my hugs are awesome.
So they are.
They are.
Charles, he always has these.
But I mean, it's also
I've got my little coffee candies here. He's always got these. They're really good. He's got me hooked on them. Now I'm buying them from Amazon in 5-gallon buckets. So.
But it's also like a big opportunity for collaboration. And what I mean by that is in the, like, you're able to have those conversations with people over coffee in the mornings or in the halls or whatever. And you're able to like your first conference, you bring a bunch of business cards as if you're going to sell your voiceover service to a bunch of other voiceover artists. And you're like, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? But as you start to get comfortable and you grow and you become acclimated and you become more a part of that family, then those conversations turn into collaborations. Hey, I'm having a little bit of trouble on this part of my business. How have you been overcoming that? Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is something that you really love. Have you thought about going through this company and trying to learn that? No, I did not. And so you're able to not necessarily like find more jobs, but learn how to how to adjust and adapt. We adapt together as like a community, and we're able to do that through those conversations and meetings. And I think that's a magical part of the conferences as well.
It is. I think people don't put enough emphasis on association with other voice actors. I think, we were talking earlier about, well, why go on social media and friend all these voice actors? They're not giving you work. Yes, they can. I've had it happen more than once, and I've been able to reach out to them, just as you said, I really don't know what to do in this situation, or I've got this NDA they sent me, but I'm not sure about this one sentence in here. I've never seen this in an NDA before. Why are they saying that? And you can always get help. It's a great community. And I love what you said about the first conference. I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I really felt uncomfortable.
I wanted to know how it worked. So my very first conference was the One Voice conference in 2021, and I volunteered to work the conference, specifically so, one, I could get to know the people behind the scenes, but two, so I could figure out how all of that operates.
Yeah.
Yep, I did that. I had One Voice. It's pretty awesome.
Very good point. Very good point. Oh gosh. We have chewed up almost 45 minutes, guys. And we greatly appreciate everybody's time. I know all you guys are busy, and we really enjoyed it. We're all, almost all of us. I don't think Alden's going to get to go to One Voice, but the other three of us are going to be there. Yeah, I don't know. I may throw a collection plate out there somewhere and see if I can get him there somehow. I'd love for him to go.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be great for all of us to be in one place at once. But before we do run away here, Andrew, give everybody all of your socials, website, whatever you could throw out there so they can reach you. And I definitely want them to be listening to your podcast.
Yeah, well, my podcast is The Voiceover Coffee Shop, vocoffeeshop.com, or anywhere podcasts are distributed. And I have the video version on my YouTube channel. Everything else is at andrewdmorrison.com. I had to put the middle initial there because the original domain, andrewmorrison.com, is owned by some real estate agent who hasn't updated his thing in since 2011, but he won't let me buy it. So andrewdmorrison.com or atlantavoiceover.com.
And that's Andrew D as in David Morrison.
Yes.
Pretty much. Listen.
I don't know. I kind of like Andrew D.
How'd you know?
How do you too?
Wait, did you actually know that my middle name was David?
No, D, that's just normal. It's David.
Okay, yeah, my middle name is David.
Andrew D is in Dingo Morrison.
He took a chance.
This is David. Yeah.
Andrew David Morrison. That's my full name.
That's amazing.
Yeah, nice job. All right, Jake, Alden, Charles, you guys got any final parting comments?
I just want to say thanks, dude. Comments? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. This was a blast. Thanks, guys.
Let me think.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun before.
Let's see.
Happy we got to learn a little bit more
Jake,
about you.
He's grinding.
Yeah.
Careful. You have smoke coming out of his headphones.
I'm trying to think if I have anything. You said if I have anything. Let me think.
Anything for Andrew. Come on.
Yeah.
He's working on it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, join us every week right here on another VO podcast. We'll catch you next time. For Charles, Alden, Jake, and our fabulous guest, Andrew D. Morrison. D is for David. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Later, dudes.
Bye.
Hey, it's Jen Henry. Thanks for listening to another VO podcast. Hey, every time you listen all the way through, each guy looks a day younger. So keep it up. How long before Jacob looks like a toddler?